Hello, welcome back to another episode of The Doctor's In. I'm your doctor, C.G. Weinberg. There's just something about being in a room full of books that just makes me feel great, which I'm going to need today because the book I'm talking about is kind of terrible and depressing. But it also gives me hope at the same time, which is a weird juxtaposition of things. But today we're talking about none other than Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I always forget how to say his first name. Aldous Huxley. Huxley was an interesting dude. Now, this was published in 1932, so turn of the century, which right before World War II and right after World War I, which speaks a lot to what it's about. Huxley was educated, born in Oxford, and then came over to California. In the 50s and 60s, he did a lot of drug use and experimentations with psychedelic drugs, which was actually before this book was written, which is interesting because of what the book's about. Now, he's looking at it like I think a question he asked would have been, what would the world be like if it was all genetically planned? Which is kind of a scary question to ponder, because it's kind of what we're shooting, like we're looking to do these kind of things in the world today. So he's asking this question nearly 100 years ago, and we are getting closer and closer to doing these kind of things in real life. So he's asking questions then that we are doing now, and which is why I think this book is so relevant, is that he is asking it and gives you a solution to it that I don't think we want. And yet, here we are. So, this is a dystopian novel. So, looking at the world today as if it had gone away and he replaced it with his own new one. And really has corporations running the whole thing. So, if you look at this cover, the chest of the man is replaced by a machine. So, all of society is churning forward this great machine work. And that is kind of what he's looking at. So I think this book is great for older kids because it's older students and adults because it is really good for discussion. And there's some scary discussion things going on in this book. So what happens in this book? Basically, you're introduced to society and how it is all genetically controlled. So people are no longer born, they're created in test tubes. And you have alpha, beta, gammas, and epsilons. And the alphas run everything, the betas are the next ones down, epsilons are basically created to be cogs in the machine. They're left in their test tubes in their alcohol baths, so they literally bathe fetuses in alcohol to make them more retarded, to make them slower. And that is actually the best word for it, in order to have them easily controlled by the alphas and the betas. And this book follows through a beta and his experience in the world, and then also his discovery of a savage. And then it kind of switches halfway through the book into the life of the savage and seeing how he responds to this brave new world. And the savage is basically like humanity today, and him going into and experiencing this brave new world of the genetic modified, and how he copes with it all. And it's pretty terrible and sad, and it is a warning of what to do with society and technology and medicine. So some questions to ask for when reading this book is, what actually is the appropriate use of drugs? There's a drug in this book that they use called soma, and you have to think about what is the proper use for things like alcohol, antidepressants, painkillers, psychedelics. What should be the appropriate use of them in society today? So like a good example of soma would actually in society today would actually be marijuana. So is marijuana use sometimes appropriate, never appropriate? And soma is very much related to this, and how marijuana is used today. and looking at what we can do with it. So that's a good question. Is eugenics ever good for society? Should we be looking to control people? When and how they are born, and when and how they should die? And what types of people are allowed into society? He goes through. Also, when you look at the savage and society, how do those two things play together? Which one is more important, the individual or society? And how they interplay and interconnect. Huxley is doing some really brilliant things in this book that should be discussed through. Also, the expansion of science and medicine. So the good old Jurassic Park question, we think about if we can and never stop to think about if we should. And that is a very prevalent question in this book. Should we be doing these things? And then one thing, if my future students are watching this video, before I read this book, a question that I always ask them to see if they've done their reading is, what happens to the savage at the end? And it is very clear if they finish their reading or not, because there's only one clear answer, and it's very vivid in the book. And if you've read it, you'll know. But it is kind of a twist at the end. So, students, I will know if you've done your reading if you can answer that question correctly. So there you go. The book is very well done. Huxley is a masterful writer. He weaves this world that does draw you in and makes you question things. I don't think anyone wants to be a part of this world, the world he writes, but it is a world that you do have to think about and digest. And that's why I think this book is really good for discussion. And looking at the world we have today, our world in the future, this book is really good to make you question where your place is and how to actually deal with it. So if you haven't read this book, I really suggest you do so, because it will give you a lot of enlightenment on society today, which I think is very helpful. So that is your prescription for today. Brave New World by Huxley. If you haven't read it, go read it. It will enrich your soul in a way that is not like cotton candy, but is way more like a meat and potatoes type of book. It is enjoyable. It needs to be digested. So chew on it a bit, discuss it with your friends. Feel free to discuss it in the comments below. If you like this book, if you like this video, give me a like. If you want to answer what happens to Savage at the end, feel free to comment below. Just put like spoilers there. But I mean, the book's nearly 100 years old, so if you haven't read it yet, shame on you. Sorry if we spoil it. It's old. Good luck there. If you want to know when my next video comes out, subscribe. And if you think someone should be reading this book, share it with them. But yeah, here's your prescription, Brave New World. And with that, the doctor is out.